Baltimore State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby is back in the news. If that name sounds familiar to you, it has been a little while. Mosby is the prosecutor who charged 6 police officers in 2015 with second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter charges, other crimes as well, were related to the death while in custody of Freddie Gray. That name may also sound familiar. Gray was a 25-year-old black man arrested for possession of a knife. He had a fairly minor criminal record, some drug charges and minor crimes. Gray was not secured properly in a police van when he was being transported and later died due to spinal cord injuries sustained during the drive. The medical examiner, because Gray hadn't been secured in accordance with departmental policy, said he had to rule the death a homicide. So this was another case of a black man, one of the early cases actually, in what seems to be a spate of them in recent years, dying while in police custody. There were, of course, violent protests following Gray's death. It should be noted the death shouldn't have happened. We should also note that the protests shouldn't have happened. At least 15 police officers were injured during those. 34 other people got arrested. And then after Gray's funeral, local businesses were burned. The governor had to call in the National Guard. It was a whole thing. Eventually, the 6 officers who had been charged were tried, or rather 4 of them were tried. 1 got a mistrial, 3 were acquitted, and after that, all of the remaining charges were dropped. So none of the police officers were convicted of anything, and in fact, I believe all 6 have since sued Mosby for her prosecution of them. At the time, she got a lot of criticism for overcharging the officers. Yeah. These charges were filed well before any serious investigation could have been completed. And so there was a lot of accusation that she was doing it for fame, to get in front of the cameras, and in some cases to maybe quiet or head off some of the protests that did in fact happen. But now the tables have turned. Yesterday, a federal grand jury chose to indict Ms. Mosby on 4 counts. She faces charges of perjury and, quote, making false mortgage applications in the purchase of 2 Florida vacation homes. That's a quote from the Associated Press, who talked to the U.S. Attorney for the District of Maryland. The charges are related to Mosby's alleged lies about meeting qualifications for coronavirus-related distributions from a city retirement plan in 2020. Prosecutors say Mosby lied on multiple mortgage application forms when she attempted to buy homes in Kissimmee, Florida, and Longboat Key, Florida. Mosby and her husband, Nick Mosby, who's currently president of the Baltimore City Council, I will note, already live in one of the tonier sections of Baltimore, a historic district called Reservoir Hill. And Kissimmee, there's nice and not so nice places in Kissimmee. Longboat Key is an expensive place to buy a house.
Yeah.
So the accusations and alleged discrepancies did not stop there, however. There have also been accusations of misuse of campaign funds to pay personal lawyers. Federal subpoenas have been issued to a couple of churches in regard to Nick Mosby's contributions there. And both Mosbys were reportedly issued a lien by the IRS after not paying property taxes for 3 years. They have since then that was paid. That hasn't been confirmed by anybody but them that I know of. The current charges, perjury charges, carry a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison, and the 2 mortgage-related offenses could carry with them a maximum of 30 years each, according to the AP. Remember that. Don't lie on your mortgage applications, folks. All right, so are you guys surprised by any of this, that a state's attorney in Baltimore would be indicted for something like perjury and making false statements? These are federal indictments, by the way.
No, not surprised. She does not have a great track record. I was shocked when she was reelected in 2018 after the whole, really just how her office has run almost everything.
Yeah.
But she was reelected, and so I just don't think anybody should be surprised that all of a sudden she's lying, she owes federal back taxes, and it's just a huge mess. I don't think it's any surprise at all.
Yeah, even this morning, I didn't even really recognize her name, just to be completely honest. But just knowing her involvement and her willingness just to kind of jump with the mob on these police officers. I think it kind of just shows this kind of tendency with people who seem to be on the left, just this kind of like underlying a little bit corruption that seems to follow them, because we hear them talking all the time about Trump's family and his kids and what they're doing. And it's like, what's the worst thing that they've done? Like, I can't really think of anything besides maybe a controversial tweet from Don Jr.
Right.
And so I just think it's interesting that time and time again, we see these people who claim to have the moral high ground and moral superiority actually having these like actual crimes underneath them.
Well, yeah. And I mean, here's the thing. Anybody who lives in the Baltimore area and has kind of seen the city deteriorate since 2015. I lived close to Baltimore for a couple years. Like everybody, it's clear to everybody that there is extreme corruption.
Yeah.
And
the murder rate's been skyrocketing over the past 7 years or so.
Yeah, all throughout her time in office, almost every crime across the board has just gone through the roof in Baltimore. She's done nothing.
Yeah.
So it's really no surprise.